Donald Trump stressed the importance of the economy in winning this year's presidential election, but how will his proposed policies affect everything from housing prices to the cost of groceries? We asked that question to ASU economist Dennis Hoffman. Dennis, always a pleasure. Good to see you again.
Ted, great to be here.
All right, the impact of a Donald Trump presidency on the economy, on affordability, the whole 9 yards.
All of it in one answer.
That's right, one answer.
Okay. Let me preface it by saying, I don't need the disclaimer. Everybody knows this is, the guest's opinion. But the first thing I want to say is the U.S. economy, the world economy not so much, but the U.S. economy is really strong. It's really strong at this particular point in time. I know there's obviously some folks hurting, and they showed up at the ballot box. But it's going to have to take huge policy missteps to mess this thing up, Ted. And that doesn't mean, we shouldn't be concerned about it. But I said the other day, it's a new ball game. And Ted, we got to hope that the ball game is not like that Sunday in Milwaukee when we blew the 8-0 lead.
All right. The price of growth, specifically eggs, the price of housing, the price of gas. In a year or two, when we bring you back on the show and say, hey, what's going on with the economy, what are you going to say?
Ted, we got 1.6% inflation in Phoenix now. Commodity prices down, rent down, gasoline prices way down, okay? The clock is starting to tick now on the next administration. Let's see where we are in a year or two.
Okay, his idea of tax cuts. He wants them to be extensive. He wants tips and Social Security benefits, corporate tax cuts to be cut. He wants child tax credits. For if you manufacture in the U.S., you get tax cuts here, there, and everywhere.
You get a tax cut, you get a tax. All inflationary at a point when the economy is hot. Those are measures that you put in place in weak economies. These are apparently politically driven initiatives that apparently work pretty well, but they're going to increase demand. They're going to put even more money back in people's pockets, more money chasing too few goods. That's inflation.
And speaking of too few goods, the higher tariffs. I've seen 55%, I've seen 60% on stuff from China, not as much on other areas and other countries. What does that do as far as inflation is concerned?
Well, we're already hearing it. The earnings announcements are coming out. The CEOs are saying, you give us tariffs, we're raising prices. You heard this just from Walmart. As I think it was today, the CEO said that. You give us tariffs, it's going to put costs that we have to pass along to consumers.
And yet, Dennis, voters were warned of that exact thing, that when it comes to tariffs, it is a tax by any other name. They didn't care.
They didn't
seem to care.
They didn't care. I think this is really simple, Ted. The people get tired of this, but the pandemic changed everything. Mr. Trump's going to see this. This is not the economy he inherited from Obama. This is the post-pandemic economy. A possible lament is that he didn't win. Turn it back, what if he would have won in 2000?
Or 2020.
Excuse me, in 2020,
yeah.
I can't even get the numbers right, sorry. What if he would have won in 2020? He would have had to endure what every other developed country endured, and that is significant inflation. And the question would be, what's the solution? So,
what is a solution?
Well, the solution was to put Chairman Powell and the gang at work at this, and it takes a couple of years. But in '82, when we wrung inflation out of the economy, it came with 12% unemployment rates, a massive downturn, and people were miserable.
But the price of eggs seemed to supersede a whole bunch of stuff in this election.
It did. We didn't hear about the wage increases that went up. The media was all over it, and everybody likes to poke at the media, but Phoenix hit 1.6 inflation in October. I got one media contact. Back when we were the poster child for inflation,
Yes.
I couldn't even get away from the phone. It was dozens a day.
Mass deportation. He's threatening
Wow.
it. He's talking about
Wow.
it. He's talked about a lot of things regarding immigration.
Right.
Let's just say that he goes ahead with this and he uses the military and completes the plan, what happens to the economy?
So it's like the 50s, only far worse. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're going to actually deport them all, well, folks are going to discover that many of the all are working in full-time jobs, and they're going to be hard to identify because they have fraudulent IDs. And it's going to be very hard to identify these particular folks. But if they do, it's a huge disruptor. It's huge in Arizona, Arizona's construction industry. It's huge across food production. I've talked with some folks in the Midwest. When I mention this, what about deporting all these folks? And the response, the quip was, wow, I guess folks don't want to eat because there won't be any food.
We're talking about, again, when Trump takes office. Is there an implementation lag? You kind of referred to this earlier, that it takes time for these things to get done. Well, these are pretty radical ideas coming from this particular president-elect. Will it take time? How much time?
Well, will it happen? You know, some of it is so, crazy? I don't know.
Provocative.
Oh, wow, that's great. You sound like an elite, you know. And, you got to watch that.
I'm working on that.
You got to watch that.
Yeah.
But at any rate, it's so devastating that it's hard to believe that it's actually going to take place. But we will see.
Last question, real quickly, because we got to go. But will Arizona get the best of it or the worst of it?
Well, Arizona will, construct. We're just at a point. This is what's so disappointing. We're at a point where rates are about to come down. Inflation's really cooling off. We get mortgage rates down. We get building some homes. We unlock these folks that are sitting on 4% mortgages. It's just about ready to blossom. And now we're going to spend all this angst and energy on roundups, raids. I don't know. I really hope not, because folks have a lot at stake.
Dennis Hoffman, ASU economist, we got to stop you right there.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.